Now to a bipartisan push by Texas lawmakers to stop an execution next week. Rodney Reed is scheduled to die by lethal injection on Wednesday, the 20th of November, for murdering a woman in Bastrop back in the 1990s. But his guilt? It's widely doubted and has been questioned for years. So more than 24 members of the Texas House, Republican and Democrat, wrote a letter to Governor Abbott asking him to put the execution on hold. State Rep Victoria Niave, a Dallas Democrat, is one of those who signed on to this letter, and she is in studio this morning, and along with Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Good morning.
Good to see you. This is your first appearance with us.
Yes, thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in, too. This isn't your district. Why in the world did you decide to sign on to this about Rodney Reed?
I think this is a critical issue that our state needs to look at when we have a potentially innocent man being put to death on death row. And so I was honored to be a part of this group of bipartisan legislators that are calling on the governor to take action to grant him a reprieve.
How did you find out about it? Because the House is a big House, obviously. There's, what, 25, 26 members are the only ones who signed on to it.
Yes.
Did someone bring it to your attention?
Yeah, well, I was flooded with emails, calls to our office from the community, not just across Texas, but across the country. And in addition, I'm a part of the Criminal Justice Caucus. And so we're looking at issues to make sure that we pass criminal justice reform in our state.
Has the governor responded, or do you think he will to this?
I have not received a response yet, but we're hopeful that he does. Especially time is of the essence when we have a potentially innocent man who may be put to death.
This is an unusual case, a DNA conviction, but a lot of the victim's family members seem to believe he was wrongfully convicted. What do you see in this case that's the most important element that makes you think Texas might be executing the wrong man?
I think we need to look at DNA evidence. It's one of the big reasons that I filed the Lavinia Masters Act, to make sure that we get evidence tested, to test the backlog of untested rape kits. But right now in our state, we need criminal justice reform, as we're seeing disproportionate numbers of African American and Latino Texans who are being incarcerated in staggering numbers. So I think DNA evidence, we have the tools at our fingertips, and ensuring that the state gets critical evidence tested could potentially free Rodney Reed.
At the time, they thought they were using that evidence. That's what they went by. Why does it not work now?
Well, one, there has been progression, and in our technology today, there have been, it's not just the DNA evidence, but there is DNA that has not been tested in this case as well. There's been an alleged confession from the potential actual murderer of the woman who was killed, and so there's
hearsay confession.
There's evidence, an affidavit and evidence, and so we want the state to be able to look at that and get the additional evidence tested. There have been experts who have also stated that their testimony would have been different, and so we think that what is at stake, protecting our Constitution and protecting the life of a potentially innocent man, is critical.
Rodney Reed lost his most recent appeals a few weeks ago. How do you think the courts got this case so wrong?
When the courts look at it, they look at the testimony that's in front of them, the evidence that's in front of them, and as attorneys, they're typically just allowed to analyze the evidence that was presented. But there's new evidence, which is why we're asking the governor to give the courts an opportunity to analyze the case.
Let's shift off to politics for a moment as well, too. One of the big highlights for you for the last session was the testing of the rape kits. There's finally money, a historic amount of money that is being spent now as of September the 1st to test this. Are these tests of these old rape kits, or is this happening already?
It is. We are finally, after many, many years of having thousands of untested rape kits sitting on our shelves, taking a step forward to protect women, men, children in our state who have been survivors of rape. It's named after the Lavinia Masters, who is a Dallas woman who has allowed us to uplift her story, and her kit sat on a shelf for more than 20 years before it finally got tested. So we're injecting a historic $50 million to address this issue. It was not easy, but on a bipartisan basis, I'm very proud that we were able to pass this legislation.
You represent one of the swing districts that Republicans would like to win back. We're seeing Democrats under attack, criticized for supporting Beto O'Rourke, for other things, socialism, all the things that Republicans are claiming. Do you feel vulnerable in the next election cycle?
We're working hard every single day, talking to thousands of voters in our community throughout the year and months, and working across the aisle. For me, I'm very proud that as a Democrat, we have independent and Republican supporters as well, because we're fighting for issues that directly impact our community community, like trying to address the high number of uninsured children that are in our state. Texas has the highest number, and Texas has yet to expand Medicaid, something that other Republican-led states have crafted state-specific plans, and we're losing millions of potential dollars to come back to our state just by not expanding Medicaid.
Who are you supporting for the presidential nomination?
So I have come out in support of President Biden, or Vice President Biden. Vice President Biden.
You're getting ahead of us here.
Getting ahead, but as a Democrat, I think the big concern for us is really we want to get behind the eventual Democratic nominee, but the concern is Trump and the divisiveness that he's caused the attacks against our communities, many different communities across our country. So it's time for change and to bring in voices that are going to fight for all of us, regardless of our background.
I want to ask you about the House leadership as well. Speaker Dennis Bonnen, as everyone knows, decided not to run for re-election after getting caught in that secret recording. Should he have resigned and walked away instead? What was the right decision?
That's up to Speaker Bonnen to do. What we're doing is focused on our constituents and our community and the issues in front of us right now. I think in the end, whoever the new speaker is going to be determined by the number of votes that turn out, the number of potential House seats that flip in our state. So it's a really interesting time in the House right now.
Final seconds here, Representative Niave. Who do you think might be good up there on the dais, the speaker dais?
That's a good. I know you're trying to get me. There are a lot of phenomenal individuals, men and women, who could potentially be our next speaker.
All right, good deal. State Rep Victoria Niave, and her first appearance here. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.